Okay, good. Yeah, take one. Take one, below the knee casting. Alright, so what we're doing today is we're going to be putting on a below the knee cast. Typically we're doing this for fractures or really severe sprains, especially after surgery for patients that have had bigger procedures done. There's two ways to put on a cast. Today we're going to show the one where the toes are exposed. In cases where patients have had toe surgery or you see pins coming out of the toes, we will extend that with some tongue depressors, and that's a technique that we'll discuss at a later time. Of course, it's stuck. Alright, so when you position the patient, what we want to do is their foot wants to be at 90 degrees. And to do that, we're going to need to put this stand underneath that second toe. And what you can do is so the patient doesn't get a nosebleed is we can bring them down to the actual stand. So in this case, we're casting the right foot, obviously. So what you want to see is that when you're looking from the side, there's about a 90-degree angle. And I think we're pretty close to that right now. And it's going to go, basically this little metal bar goes about halfway down the foot, right underneath the second toe. First thing we're going to do is we're going to cut a piece of stockinette that'll go around the patient's leg. You want that to make sure that's a little longer on the top and a little longer at the toes, so that when we actually fold it down, it'll be enough to cover the edge of the cast. So you kind of gather it just like you would a sock. Lift your foot, please. And you're going to slide it up, just like that. The excess you'll cut off. Could you hand me that scissor in that drawer there? Once you've done that, we'll cut the tip off here. Thank you. So we'll cut the little excess off there, and then once you put them back on the stand, it's very important that when you do that, that the actual metal bar goes inside and underneath that toe. So again, I'm just resting his toe right on top of that, making sure that it's at about 90 degrees. And also that he's far enough away from the chair so that I don't get any fiberglass material on that. So what we're going to do next is we're going to start wrapping the leg with what we call cast padding, another name for is web roll. There's a couple landmarks that we look for. One is the fibular head, so you feel the side of the knee, and luckily in our patients that are a little healthier, it's easier to find that. If they're really thick leg, it's hard to find it. But what you don't want to do is when we make this cast, we don't want that cast to end right below that notch because it can actually irritate a nerve that's there. So you can actually start padding at that level, but when we put the fiberglass on, it'll be slightly below that, and I'll show you that in a second. So the important thing is there's several areas that are really important to pad. One is the shin. Patients often use a device called a knee scooter to walk, and if we have inadequate padding there, they're going to get discomfort. But as you go down and roll this on, you'll notice that every time I go down, I go about half the width of the previous wrap. And why I'm doing that is as I go down, when I finish, I'll have at least 2 layers. And then when I come back up from the bottom, I'll also have 2 more additional layers, so for a total of 4. And 4 is enough padding for most patients. So first area that we worry about, in front of that shin. Okay, want to make sure that's well padded. The next area is the bottom of the heel. Patients will often rest their heels in the floor, and that can actually burn a hole in that, or if they cheat a lot and they try to walk on it, they'll burn a hole in the back of that. So we need to make sure that we're covering that heel adequately. And you'll notice I'm going around it quite a few times. Now when we come onto the toes, you can slightly see, and on camera you can't, but when I'm looking at the foot, you can see that the little pinky toes and everything, how long they are. What you want is you want the toes just peeking a very little bit out the tip of that cast. And we'll see that when we finish, you'll be able to notice that. But again, this is the third area that we want to really make sure is nicely padded. Okay, so I'll put several layers here. On the way back, I'll put several more. You also want to make sure there's no wrinkles anywhere. So again, making sure I capture that heel. And what you can do is if you feel like there's not enough padding in the back of the heel, the simple thing you can do is just make tear off little pieces like this and just lay those on the back. Just like that. And you can obviously feel that's the number one place that you'll forget to put either padding or even the casting material. So same thing, we're going to go up, half overlapping each time. That creates 4 layers of padding throughout the whole cast. And when I finish, I'll actually add extra padding at the top just in case they hard knee, especially using one of those knee screws I talked about earlier. You can't put cast padding on too tight. It tears, so that's impossible. All right, now we're gonna start putting on the fiberglass. Fiberglass, if the package has been broken, you'll feel it opens up and it'll feel really dry. Obviously, we can't use those, but in the case of the roll, it needs to get slightly wet. Now, if the water is very, very hot, it's gonna dry really, really fast, and it can actually burn the patient. So what we wanna make sure is that water is just lukewarm. And what you'll do is you'll dip that roll in the water just for, literally 5 seconds, squeeze out any excess water. Be careful not to touch your skin with this because it doesn't hurt, but it just doesn't come off for a really long time. So some people start from the bottom. You can start from the top. Doesn't really matter to me as long as you're, if you're going to cut it, it doesn't matter, I should say. But if you're going to actually leave it intact, it's actually better to start from the bottom. So I know where his little toes are. I'm going to go just behind where we ended our cast padding. And I start out with just a few wraps in the front of the foot. Okay, that gives a nice base. And then the same thing, just like the padding, as I go up, I'm going to half overlap each time. When you get to the ankle, I usually have to go high first. Then you can go behind the heel after that. And make sure this area here that we're getting adequate padding there, that things are smoothing down nicely. Make sure that your cast is at about 90 degrees. Oops, that's not it. And again, had this water been hotter, I'd be getting in trouble because it started to dry pretty fast. All right. We'll be putting a total of 3 of these on there. After you get the first 2 on, I'll show you how we fold down the other padding. So you get a good cosmetic result and the patient feels comfortable in the cast. So I'll start right where I finish, so that sticks. And half overlap as I go up. Again, now this is the important part. You gotta find where that little bone is, all right? In his case, it's right here. You wanna make sure that that fiberglass is never higher than 2 finger breadths below that area. So I'm feeling where that little notch is, my pinky finger or my index finger's in that, and I have another finger below it, so I have plenty of space. We also want to make sure that behind the knee, that it's not too high where that when they bend their knee like this, that they're going to get pressure from that cast, and he's definitely low enough for that. So several rolls on the top so you don't have a sharp edge. You can start continuing back down again. And I know people blow through the heel, so I'll add that extra layer right there. All right, now that we've gotten to that point, make sure that everything's smoothed out real nice. And what we're going to do is we're going to fold this down. You don't have to yank really hard, just basically enough to get that to curl a little bit over the top and you get that nice rounded appearance there. Yes, we want to keep the cast, have the patient keep their foot stable, but cosmetics really does matter with this. Is the first thing the patient notices, so their perception is that's all they see. So what we like to see when we do a cast like this is that we can see all the toes. You may not be able to see that in the camera, but I can see his little pinky toe right there. If it's pinched in there real deep, sometimes people get irritation and discomfort from that. All right. Now this last roll, you need to make sure that this last one, often we'll use color for this one. You want to make sure that you have enough of the roll to make it across the whole, or make it across the whole cast. You don't want to spend too much time in one area and you find you run out and now you have to go open up another roll. So we're going to try to wrap this almost at the exact height the previous roll finished, all right? Because if you don't, sometimes you can get kind of a sharper edge that you can't see that's actually underneath the cast padding that we pulled over. Again, half overlap as we come down. If it's a very big leg and you feel like you're running out, you can do more than that because, again, you're just a colored roll. And actually, again, if it looks like I may be starting to run out, so I'm going to go to make sure I get the foot covered. And then when you finish your cast, you want to make sure that you inspect for any areas where there could be any bumps or lumps or things that haven't gotten stuck down. So if you have the water here, you can get your hands wet too, and by doing that, you can kind of smooth on any areas that haven't gone down appropriately. Take that little guy out. Make sure they're at about 90 degrees. I don't know if you can see that with this in the way. But he's about 90 degrees. Just basically smooth on any areas that are uncomfortable. Is anything uncomfortable? Say no.
No.
It doesn't matter what you feel, say no.
No.
But he's hardening up pretty quick. The water is pretty warm, so it's going to dry pretty fast. Okay? And that is a below the knee cast.